This is a brand new Zhiyun Weebill Lab. Let's see what this thing can do. So the Weebill Lab is a brand new gimbal from Zhiyun, and as you can see, it's a complete redesign of what the traditional handheld gimbal looks like. Without the mini tripod, look how small this is. It's super tiny. And for reference, here's the Zhiyun Weebill Lab against a silly banana. The new design of the Weebill Lab allows you to use the gimbal in two different ways. The first way is by using the Weebill Lab in the traditional way by attaching the mini tripod to the bottom of the gimbal. The second way is actually pretty cool, where you take the mini tripod, attach it to the back end of the Weebill Lab, and use it in what's called undersling mode. Is it underslung or undersling? It should be called sling mode. In this mode, you can hold the gimbal as if you're holding a briefcase. This is incredibly useful, especially if you want to do low angle shots, like following someone's feet or doing some really cool ground shots. Also, I personally feel that holding the gimbal this way has a more natural feel of operating the gimbal versus holding it in the traditional standpoint. As far as smoothness goes, I don't think there's a big difference operating the gimbal traditionally or in underslung mode. That's just preference, and I like that the Weebill Lab gives you those options. One of my favorite features of the Weebill Lab are the locking mechanisms on all three axes. There is a switch for each individual axis which locks the roll, tilt, and pan. This is great for two reasons. One, it makes it super handy for traveling, especially if you just want to put this gimbal in a backpack. You don't have to worry about the axes going all over the place. You can just lock it by flipping the switch and know that your gimbal arms are protected. The second reason is that it makes balancing a gimbal incredibly easy. As you're balancing a camera on traditional gimbals, you're having to worry about the different arms going all over the place. What I like to do is lock the pan and roll axes while I adjust the tilt of the gimbal. And once that's set, I can adjust the roll, and once that's set, I can unlock the pan axis and finish balancing the gimbal that way. As for the rest of the features goes, the Weebill Lab adapted the features from the Crane 2 and Smooth 4. You have your power button off to the side, you have a pan follow and lock switch, so if you want to operate the gimbal in pan follow mode, make sure the switch is up, or if you want to operate the gimbal in lock mode, then make sure the switch is down. Above the switch is a button for phone go mode, so if you want to do quick pan actions, hold this button down and whip the camera left and right. This is pretty useful, especially if you're capturing high action shots like sporting events, or chasing your kids or your dog, or capturing your dog, chasing your kids, whatever, you have that option. And in front of the gimbal is the trigger button, and when you push that down, it allows you to follow all axes on the gimbal. That's incredibly useful, especially if you start off filming in lock mode. You can start off by filming in lock mode, then go into follow mode by pushing the trigger button. And when you're done, just let go. Pretty cool. On the back end of the gimbal is POV mode, so if you want to do slight rolls on the gimbal as you walk, you can do so. And of course, you have your joystick and your wheel, and pretty much the same features seen on the Crane 2. Okay, so since we have two gimbals out, we have the Zhiyun Weebill Lab and Tyler over here has a Crane 2. We're going to do a walking test and compare the two gimbals to see which one's smoother. You ready? You ready? Are you ready? I'm ready. Are you ready? All right, let's go. So the Zhiyun Weebill Lab is pretty easy to use. I mean, I've used a lot of gimbals before, so obviously I know how to use a gimbal, but I'm gonna ask somebody, hopefully a non-filmmaker, a normal average person, to use the Zhiyun Weebill Lab to see if it's actually easy to use. This is gonna be fun. So what do I think about this gimbal? Well, I love how incredibly light it is, and I love that I can just pack it into my backpack. I love its new design, I love its versatility, I love the locking mechanisms that allows me to balance the gimbal a lot easier, and I love how small this gimbal is and can still hold cameras up to 6 pounds. I will say that if you do have a heavy lens like the Sony 24-70 G Master, that probably won't do well on the Weebill Lab. Having that said, I don't think this gimbal is for everybody. I personally find that the Weebill Lab is meant for filmmakers that have lighter camera setup, especially for those that travel. This gimbal is great for cameras like the A7 III, Panasonic GH5, the Sony a6500. Right now I'm using the Canon EOS R with the 24-105 R lens, and that works pretty well. But if you have heavy camera setups like the 1DX Mark II, C300, or FS5, then obviously stick with gimbals that can handle those setups. Anyway, those are my first impressions and thoughts on the new Zhiyun Weebill Lab. Overall, I like it. It's not for everybody, but it's perfect for the filmmakers that have lighter camera setups, especially for those that travel. But let me pass the question off to you. What do you think? Is this gimbal for you? Why are bananas so silly? Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, or hit me up on Instagram or Twitter. If you like this video, thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next video.